Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the My Empty Hands podcast. I am Reggie Darden, and today I have with me Sensei Duval Hamilton. Typically, our podcast is about Kempo, but this is one of our bonus episodes. So we get to learn a little bit about Kyokushin style. Kind of get the ball rolling on our conversation here. I'll just kind of give a little bit of my background. I started doing Kempo in the mid 90s. Did that for a few years and then left for the Army. While I was in the Army, I got to dabble a little bit in Taekwondo and Hapkido and a little bit of boxing. Once I got out of the military, I then found myself getting involved in capoeira, and I've been doing that for coming up on 17 years now. And then a few years ago, I got back into doing Kempo and been doing that and enjoying that as well. I'm, a big, huge fan of martial arts, all systems. So I definitely want to have other, other styles represented and just hear the stories of others that may be that are training and just get all of the good stories and good conversations. So with Sensei Hamilton, I would say maybe first, if you could kind of give us just a kind of a brief description of the style, and then tell us how you got started, and just kind of tell us about your journey.
Yes. So first and foremost, I want to thank you, Reggie, for inviting me to your podcast. And I want to tell you much success with your podcast in the upcoming future episodes. So I grew up in New York City in the 70s. And so was one of many, I guess, kids that were so in love with the Bruce Lee. So it was the Bruce Lee era, right? So I was so fascinated by him because here you had this really small guy beating up on or defending himself against his attackers or his enemies. So growing up in the 70s as a kid, of course, I wore glasses, right? And that was a big thing, and a lot of kids used to tease me. And, on a few occasions was bullied myself. And so I asked my parents to sign me up for some type of martial art classes. And so, my parents didn't make a lot of money. And as I grew up in the projects in New York City, there was a gentleman that was teaching Kung Fu at the community center. And so my parents signed me up and, I was taking a few classes in Kung Fu.
Do you know what particular system of that, or just?
No, that was so long ago. I can't remember what particular system, but I do remember there was a few people in the class, and he seemed to me that he was pretty good in his teachings. But for some reason, I kind of seemed like I wanted something more, not necessarily different, but something more. Here I am, like 11-year-old kid, trying to, beginning my martial arts journey, trying to figure out what I really want or what really fits for me. I kind of thought that I didn't want that, so I asked my parents if they could sign me up in a real martial arts school, And
Mm-hmm.
so one weekend, my mother took us shopping on this famous street in Queens, New York called Steinway Street. And I so happened to look up on the second floor and I see something on the outside that read Taekwondo. Taekwondo. Okay. And so I urged my mother to take me up there. And when she took me and they opened up the doors to the studio, I mean, it was everything that I kind of imagined in my head as what a martial arts studio would look like. The wood floors, you had the padding against the walls, you had the weapons on the side, and there was a class going on, and everybody was wearing white uniforms with different color belts. And that was it for me. I said, Mom, this is it. This is a real karate school. And so Mom signed me up, and It was, I believe I was going 2 days a week to train in Taekwondo. And I spent some years there. I spent some years there until my parents just couldn't afford it anymore. And then at that point, as I went into high school and I started working part time, I found myself at a Shotokan dojo, and I trained there for a little bit. But my journey, like I think, like a lot of people's journey today, and as growing up in New York, I always tell my students that people connect to martial arts for different reasons. And one of my reasons was strictly to, one, protect myself as a kid and to kind of build that self-esteem that I kind of was missing also as a kid. And it kind of worked for me. It kind of worked for me. So I also think about, too, when you're talking about growing up in New York City in the 70s, people joining any type of martial arts, whether it be kung fu, karate, jujitsu, or whatever the case may be, the main focus was strictly for survival. Especially in the 70s, high crime, and the streets weren't really safe, and so people joined martial arts strictly for survival, for protection. As we have it today, people join martial arts. I'm going to join for some survival, maybe, or I'm going to join because I want to get fit, or I want to have an exercise program or regiment. But I just clearly remember that as me being now in my older age, that was the purpose, was to join strictly for survival. So it's very interesting how the dynamics of martial arts, how it was then and now. So,
Hmm.
but through my years, I've trained also in a little bit of jujitsu with a man by the name of Moses Powell, who is
Yes.
he's a New York legend. He since passed away a couple of years ago. So I trained with him. And the interesting story how I got to Kyokushin was through that route. So downstairs was Moses Powell's school, and on the third floor was the Kyokushin dojo. And so for the whole entire year that I was going there, I didn't realize that there was a karate school upstairs until one day I was walking to class and I hear the noises of people, ki, hey, hey, hey. I looked up, oh man, I didn't know that was up there. I'll take a look after class. And when I went upstairs, again, it's always upstairs, right? When I went upstairs, they were participating in a fighting class. And I watched the whole entire class with my jaw open, and the intensity of the fighters and the full contact of the fighters. This was something that I had to have. And that very next week, I gave up Sanukas Ryu and I joined Kyokushin Kai Karate. And that was back in 1990-ish, right? 1990.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
That's it's yeah. I don't think I've really heard too many people um, talk about kind of just changing courses so quickly. Because I mean,
Yes.
like me, I've been recently known to say that I wish there was 40 hours in the day because I love Kempo, I love capoeira,
Yeah.
but there's also I've been eyeballing this Kali training. Want to do some the traditional Japanese kobudo
Right.
weapons. I want to do some jujitsu. I want to do some hapkido.
Yeah. So
I
much that you
just
want
don't
to
have time
participate
to
in.
do everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. But I think when someone is searching for something, there always going to be a moment where you're going to find that thing, right? It's something that's on the inside that will trigger you to let you know this is it. This is it. Now, me being as an 11-year-old who's searching for something, that's where the journey or the beginning of the search began. It began in the community center, and I kind of felt like it wasn't enough, or it wasn't something that I thought in my head was martial arts. And then I discovered the Taekwondo school, and because I went through the journey, and then grew up. and then, moved and whatnot. So had to join another school. But, people, I think like I said, when you're on a journey, you will know you've reached your destination. Like this is it. And that was the feeling that I've received when I watched that first Kyokushin karate class. That was the thing, because I always felt, if you're going to do any type of martial arts, it has to be done the way we do it in Kyokushin. It's
Mhm.
close, very close to the real thing. It's 90% of the real,
Gotcha.
meaning the attacks, the punch, the kicks. It's real. It's real. All right. So that's how I kind of felt in my mind at my time during the 90s when I was first introduced to Kyokushinkai.
So, what would you say would be, I don't know, kind of the selling line, or the one sentence summary? I mean, you can of course use more than one sentence, but
Yes.
how would you maybe classify Kyokushin versus another style? Like, how would you describe somebody that doesn't know about these different arts?
Right.
How would you
So
describe it to
I
them?
often tell people who have never heard of Kyokushin, or maybe have some knowledge of it, it's a traditional base martial art. It's considered traditional base martial art with the full contactness, or the full contact kicks and punches. So if you laid out the whole spectrum of traditional karate, um, you could there is very few of them that is actually, now it's also depending on the instructor, but there's very few of them that's actually practicing a full contact, no pad type of art. If you look in the world of Shotokan, they might have pads, they might have a sort of kind of full contact, and then if you look at other arts, you might have, you know, tap, or what we call in this side of the fence of the martial arts world, not semi contact, point sparring, where you could just throw the technique and pull back. For us, there's no pullback. There's no pullback in everything that we do. And then on top of that, too, to kind of prepare the student for that, we put them through a very rigorous training session. And then the icing on the cake for all of that is, and this is just, and I'm speaking for me, Sensei Duval, Kyokushin instructor, we have the full contactness, and we prepared them with the rigorous training. And then on top of that, the mindset, preparing the mindset. And we have this term, and I think most martial arts schools use the term os. And for Kyokushin practitioners, we take that term to the next level. So you'll probably hear that term in any one of our classes at least 150 times, because we really absorb the energy of that term, meaning to persevere and to endure. And so, again, we have the heavy fighting, the heavy preparedness for that fighting physically, and then the mental layer that covers all of that. I don't want to kind of sell it as the greatest thing since iced tea,
Hmm.
but it is very rigorous, very hard, very difficult. And then again, the mental mindset that we try to put the students in. Always positive, always pushing, even when you're hurt, when you're tired, you still
Hmm.
keep moving. It's the forward moving that we kind of teach the student.
Yeah, I really like that aspect, and getting that not just the physical, the physical
Right.
toughness, but
Yes.
getting that mental and spiritual toughness as well.
Exactly.
That's something that don't really want to get into it, but
Yeah.
people could say
Well,
the current generations are losing that
of
toughness.
course.
And
I actually agree. I totally 100% agree with you that the generations are lacking in that toughness. So, um, so this is why it's essential for us to do that, to have that toughness. Even because I'm always traveling, I'm always visiting schools and seeing what they're like, and I see it in sometimes in the teaching in other schools that they don't put that mental portion in there. They try to, I guess they try to generalize it a little bit, and kind of cliche things,
Hmm.
but for us, it's definitely the mental toughness. Now, I have to say too that we don't teach students to ego trip. There's styles out there that will teach, and then it'll add a layer of ego on top of it as well. And you got to be
Hmm.
very careful too that we don't develop that ego mindset, because it will catch up with you. But we also preach a level of humbleness, and then doing what you need to do to protect your family, yourself, others. Martial arts it looks pretty on the outside, but
Yeah.
it's not designed to be pretty. In all reality, it was never designed for children either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you think about these strikes and these hits and that's not the type of stuff you want to teach kids you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
but I understand children's classes, you take them, you use it for the principles, you kind of water it down. You might want to change the meaning of a lot of things a little bit because kids will take it literal and they will actually try it, right? So martial arts, whatever form it is, it's not a pretty thing. You have the martial and then you have the art. They say art can sometimes be nice and pretty, but then it could be gruesome, and ugly,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So with that being said, as I said, we train the mental, but we don't train for ego. And when I see egos beginning to creep up, especially at my dojo, then I have to immediately check it. You see?
Gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha. So in the breakdown, so in Kempo, we have kind of the breakdown of the pieces. We have your basics. We have our self defense techniques. We have
Right.
forms. We have some weapons. Is there a similar breakdown as far as like do you
Yes.
do forms? Do you do weapons?
Yes. There is a similar breakdown. So our basic breakdown would be the basic techniques, the kata, and the fighting. That's the basic form. Now, on the outer rims of that triangle, we also have the weapons, all right, not a lot of weapons, and the self defense, or what we coin as self defense techniques, all right. But the core of Kyokushin is the basics, the kata, and the fighting. That's basically the core. All right. And it's also depending on if you go to Kyokushin dojos around the world. Some might have more experience with weaponry than other instructors, so they will focus on that as well. And then again, on the self defense side, some might have more experience with the self defense than others, as we coin it today as self defense.
Mhm.
But for us, within the kata comes out the self defense. So we try to, so that's really the basic triangle: the basic techniques, the kata, and then the fighting. Now, the fighting portion, we weigh a little bit more heavy
Mhm.
on that
Mhm.
aspect, right? We weigh a little bit more heavy than our basics in kata, because that's why we're coined as the fighting karate. So we'll scale a little bit heavy on the fighting, but we still, for my dojo, it is still necessary to practice the basics and the
Well, for the sparring, does that kind of come day one, or you got to at
kata.
least kind of get a couple belts in, or when does that start getting
So the
integrated?
sparring basically comes maybe not day one, but definitely week one. I mean week two. So the sparring for at my dojo is as this. If you are like a beginner student, it is suggested that you put some gear on, hands and shinin steps. It's suggested. As the student grows through the ranks and as they get closer to, let's say, the intermediate and the black belt or the brown belt, which is the next color before black, it is suggested that now you spar without these things because the black belt test comes with no pads. All right. So the sparring I try to get in as almost the second week that they're in. And it's not hard sparring. It's just getting them acclimated to moving, keeping their hands up, and maybe giving them a few shots, not at 100%, maybe 20%.
Mhm.
That's because when you're getting, it's easy to stand in front of a bag and punch and kick a bag when that bag is not hitting your back, right?
Exactly.
So now so I try to lay the foundation as early as possible. Always hands up because a lot of times in fighting, your opponent, who may or may not know martial arts, is going to try to hit you to the face. So you always got to keep your hands up. And then as the students progress through the weeks and the months and then years and then the ranking, then they will start to develop better fighting skills, of course.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, kind of getting back to I don't know, this generation's thought process. I mean, have you had a lot of pushback with, people that come into the studio and it's like, oh, like these people are really hitting each other? Is that you kind of got pushback? So, at the school that I train at, and hopefully my instructor's not going to get upset with this, but when we announced like this, bring your gear, it's going to be sparring night tonight, it's like all of a sudden people don't show up to class that night. Everybody's got something to do all of a sudden. So I would say that my thought process is that people that kind of come into your school kind of have a little bit of an idea of what they're getting
Yeah.
into, but
Yeah. Yeah.
when they kind of really see, oh wait, no, they really are gonna punch me.
Right. Exactly.
Has there been kind of pushback for that, or?
So for the most part, people that visit or have an interest have somewhat of an idea of what Kyokushin is about. And I think a lot of times when they come into the dojo, their expectation is to see what they probably have watched on YouTube, a world tournament where they're really punching hard and knocking people out.
Mm-hmm.
They're expecting to see that,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not going to give that to them, right? What we're giving them is our regular routine. We're training, we're training, we're training, we're training, and then at some moments of the training, yes, it's going to get hard. And then some moments of the training, somebody's going to get hurt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it's not going to be on that world tournament type of fighting.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people are expecting that. They say, Kyokushin, oh, let me go watch. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but for the most part, people coming in, visiting first time students, they know what the expectation is because a lot of times they've done their research. But when I hear that people are scarcely missing their sparring classes, to me, that's kind of a little bit like, what are you here for?
Yeah.
That's my whole purpose. And this is why I say again, I go back when I talked about in the 70s, the expectation was, hey, I got to do what I need to learn to survive on the streets of New York and Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it takes, I'm learning. Fast forward 30, 40 years later, I'm joining martial arts because I want to be identified with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, or I want to be identified with I'm getting physically strong. You see, it's one thing to throw a punch, but it's another thing to also receive one, right? So,
Exactly.
I mean, that's my expectation. My expectation is that if you want to learn, if you have to come to sparring class. It's like I know it hurts,
Mm-hmm.
but it's preparing you for something that you probably don't want to feel out there on the streets, Yeah, and so definitely sparring classes is our sparring. To be honest with you, our sparring classes are full. Like we have a bunch of people on the floor, and I don't know too many of our students that want to miss sparring classes
Mm-hmm.
unless they're injured and they don't want to
Yeah.
re-injure. I understand, but there's a lot of students that come to sparring classes. They will miss the basic classes, they will miss the kata classes, but they will definitely come to the sparring classes. So,
Yeah. No, I like that. I like that, and it's funny. It just makes me think about situations. So I've taught or been teaching, kind of long story to get into,
right.
but I was teaching a capoeira class and had a young lady come to class, and we were kind of sitting in a circle doing some warm up stretches, and she was like, "Oh, like I don't stretch around other people," and I was like, "You do realize this is a group class? Like,
Right.
I don't understand what you thought you were coming to, but like this is a group class." And then once we kind of got started moving around, and she's like, "Oh, like I don't want to be like on stage," and it's like this. Once again, this isn't a private class. This is
Right,
this
right,
is a
right,
group
right, right.
class. So I'm not sure what your
Yeah.
expectations were, but
Yeah,
I
so
like
like I said,
that.
some people come to the dojo for different reasons. Whatever their reasons are, I don't know. And then on top of that too, when we're talking in terms of classes, you have students who are from different demographics, different um, um, but I always say that when we all assemble together in one dojo, we're all as one, right? We try to do the same things, you know. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah, it's martial arts nowadays. Like it's big business.
Yeah.
It's huge business, you know? And so I'm a firm believer as keeping it as close to as my instructors gave it to me and as their instructors gave to them and as Oyama gave to them, you see?
Hmm.
So that's how I keep it. And so some might say I'm too traditional, but if we're going to talk in terms of systems, that's how we're going to keep it pure. Because as you know, once I tell you a story and then you tell that same story to somebody else, and then they tell that same story to two other people, the story changes. All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
The story changes. So part of my quest as an instructor is to try to keep it within the boundaries of what was set out from Masuyama. And sometimes that changes because remember, as you get older, sometimes your mindset changes, right?
Hmm.
So I try, and again, like I said, I try to keep it as within that frame. So if it worked for him, if it worked for his first generation of instructors, if it worked for the second generation of instructors, it's good enough for me, you see. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
yes, sir.
So is there like a separation? Is there like a competition side versus the? So I'm just in my mind. I'm thinking of it in akin to like Taekwondo. Like you have your
Yeah,
Olympic Taekwondo, and then you
yeah,
have your traditional Taekwondo. Is
yeah.
Kyokushin broken up like that, or?
So Kyokushin right now is broken up into groups and organizations. So when Oyama passed away, the organization was turned over to one gentleman, and he was a younger guy than his seniors, of course. And of course, the seniors were upset about that whole thing. And then the splinter groups began to form. So within those splinter groups, you have many organizations now in Kyokushin. I remember when it was just one organization, but
Mhm.
what happened with that is basically they kept the same foundation of Kyokushin, kind of deviate outside, or we have offshoots of Kyokushin, which also kept the basics of Kyokushin, the fighting, but
Mhm.
maybe eliminated the kata portion of it, or might have recreated their own kata
Mhm.
within the fighting. So I think the question that you were trying to get at there is, are there sport elements in Kyokushin? And yes, we have tournaments. Um, and so the bigger and or the Olympics, I would say the Olympic would be World Tournament in Japan. That would be the Olympic of Kyokushin tournaments.
Mhm.
To go to Japan, compete in world tournaments. But we have tournaments. We have quite a few tournaments nowadays in North America, in particularly the United States. There's a lot of tournaments now that are going on. So these are very, very small tournaments. The rule set for a lot of them are a little bit more condensed. And then they break it off from full contact competitions and semi-contact competition. And semi-contact simply means you just put pads on, but you could still hit and kick with the same intensity, just pad up, but no
Mhm.
knockout. For full contact, no pads, and you can knock out in those competitions. So yes, is there a sport aspect? Well, we don't in the Kyokushin community, they don't want to claim it as a sport because
Mm-hmm.
now we believe that it kind of waters it down. But I think it's going in that direction, that we're getting too too much too much sporty in
Mm-hmm.
the art. So, but again, that's instructors, you know, who are focused a lot on tournaments. That's what they want. So sometimes popular demand drives things to that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yes, we do have a quote unquote sport end of it, and which is simply
Okay. And then as far as like winning matches, so it's strictly based on, knockouts or, accumulative points, is there takedowns that like how
yes.
does it go about in whatever
Okay.
determining who wins a bout?
Who's the winner? Who's the winner of the bout? So on the short answer is knockout. That's Ippon, which is a 1 point win, and you totally win the match, a knockout. Now there are areas where you can get half points, and the half point might be a situation where you strike your opponent to the gut, and that person keels over, but then they recover almost right away. If that happens, the corner judges or they would score that as a half point. But for the most part, the knockout is the win for the match. You know, we do not have in traditional, and I kind of coined this traditional Kyokushin. There are no takedowns, but there is offshoots of Kyokushin that will incorporate the takedown as well.
Okay.
So, but for traditional Kyokushin, it's simply just a knockout. Most of those knockouts come via kicks to the head, and those are, I mean, as brutal as it sounds, those are exciting to see
Oh
because
yeah.
it's not that easy to come by. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yes, we do have a system where we have points, 1 point wins, which is a knockout. Half point scored is somebody that you probably kick or punch and they kind of keel over and then they recover right away. That's a half point. Or even somebody that you might have strike, let's say to the midsection and they keel over, automatically the judges will give a half point. But if they don't recover, it's automatically a full point, and that's
Uh,
deemed as I guess a technical knockout.
okay.
Technical knockout.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe it's in Kyokushin, and you can stop me if it's got the wrong system, but I believe that you get there's a kind of a signature I've seen a few
Yeah.
people get laid out with.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So we actually have a couple of signature kicks. The one kick that I think most people are thinking of is that pinwheel kick, where
yeah.
the fighter just basically does a front roll
Mm-hmm.
and extends his leg out and strikes his opponent to knock out. I've probably seen that maybe outside of watching world tournament videos, I've probably seen that at least 3 or 4, maybe 5 times at an actual tournament. It is exciting to see, but it's unfortunate for the person who gets hit with that kick.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, basically, that kick is like a suicide kick. I mean, it's almost like a toss of a coin. You know, if it
Mm-hmm.
hits, it hits. If it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
hit, you get off the ground and possibly do it again. The other signature kick for Kyokushin is the question mark kick that everybody talks about.
Oh
The
yeah,
question
yeah.
mark kick. That's right. That's another signature kick in Kyokushin is the question mark kick. And I remember probably during the early 2000s, maybe the mid 90s, more so the early 2000s, the Brazilians in Kyokushin kind of
Mm-hmm.
made that for Kyokushin. You know, they were doing that a lot. This gentleman by the name of Globe Fatosa from Brazil, excellent kicker, and he does that also well. And I actually saw him live doing that kick in a K1 event, and he
Oh.
literally knocked out a guy to win that year's K1 championship with that kick, this question mark kick. Yeah.
So with there's that focus of full contact fighting. How has the rise of MMA has that affected people's desire to train, or maybe the training itself, or because I would think that maybe some fighters may now want to be exposed to that to kind of get some more quote unquote
Right.
real world
Yeah.
practice. But
Yeah. I think right now, I think I would say within the last 20 years, the karate brand has
mhm,
been a little bit of tainted a little bit. And so anything with karate tailed to it, doesn't matter whether it's Kempo, Kyokushin, Shotokan, or whatever, I think the public's eye, they're looking at it as that's not real.
mhm.
Or, or a lot of terms that I often get, Cobra Kai.
Yeah, Cobra
You
Kai
get
for
that
sure.
Cobra Kai for sure. So I think the brand of karate has been a little bit of stained, at least for the past 20 years. My goal as Dallas Kyokushin is to kind of remove that stain off of karate and keep pushing forward with the full contact karate. And so, with that being said, currently I'm training and teaching with some students who are masters in the art, in their various arts.
Mhm.
And they're embracing right now Kyokushin as something unique, different. And so I always say that if you are someone who's traditionalist, and I think nowadays we can probably I don't know, maybe Brazilian jiu-jitsu, they wear dogis and stuff like that. So would that be tradition? I'm not really sure. But I always say that BJJ and full contact karate is a nice pair,
Mhm.
or judo and full contact karate, that's a nice pair. So I think it's going to take a lot of work, at least in Dallas, for me, to kind
Gotcha.
of keep pushing and presenting karate way much more than a Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Exactly.
Much more than a Cobra Kai, but to show them that this is a art that is solid, very solid. All right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, yeah. So right now, like I said, so karate has that stain, and I'm almost feeling as my quest to kind of get that stain removed. At
I like
least,
it.
like I said, at least here in the DFW area.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's definitely something that I would like to see more of, is that respect angle, that, inner peace, the, you know, the non showboating side of the arts.
Oh,
I don't see
absolutely,
MMA as a martial art. I see it as a combat sport. It's something different than martial art, because you don't get the
absolutely.
kind of same the same attitude. And so you look at like the UFC, and in the early days of the UFC, when people walked into the ring, they bowed and things like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now they just kind of come in and they're spitting and
yeah.
cursing, and it's like,
Well,
what is happening?
you brought it up as a good point. It is a combat sport, and when you have money involved in anything,
Hmm.
right? Then you have to build a storyline,
Yeah.
right? So even MMA have storylines.
Yeah.
It's weird. I mean, it's almost like, and I hope nobody kind of gets offended like this, but and speaking in terms of not MMA, but speaking in terms of the UFC,
Hmm.
it's almost like the new WWE,
Yeah.
right? You have characters, and you know that Conor McGregor, he's a guy that's gonna be nasty and
Hmm.
and then you have John Jones, he's this guy, he's really good, he's level headed. So
Hmm.
it's almost like the new version of the WWE, you
Yeah.
know, and
Exactly.
it's like the behaviors that they are showing on the screen, the generation or that demographic, like that 18 to 20 something or that 18 to 30 something, they're watching it and they want to mimic that, you see, because
Hmm.
they think I'm going to go to an MMA class, I'm going to learn all these techniques, and then that's going to make me a badass.
Yeah.
No. So you got to be very careful with that because every dog has his day, right?
Exactly.
So that's what I think. I kind of think that the UFC has evolved from one thing to another, just like anything else. But more so now today, it's almost like the new WWE, and it's
Gotcha.
sad to see. You know, it's really sad
Hmm.
to see.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything away from those athletes at all, but I'm just saying that portion of it is really, to me, is not cool. Believe it or not, I'm starting to see that in BJJ. Now, I'm not a big BJJ fan. I
Hmm.
had an opportunity to watch some events recently that was, advertised on social media,
Hmm.
and I see some of that stuff going on. The little arrogance, building a story, talking about that person. I'll break this guy's arm. I'll submit you.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too
Yeah.
much. And that's one thing about Kyokushin. I have very rarely see that type of attitude. To be honest with you, I've been in Kyokushin for over 30 something years, and I have not really seen that type of attitude. And I've seen some really knockout strong fighters. And when they knock someone out, it's all respect and that's it. You know, I didn't, we don't create storylines.
Hmm.
We don't celebrate on the tatami, which is the main fight space. We don't
Hmm.
celebrate like guys celebrate. It's about us, shake hands, go to your corner, and then you celebrate on the corner over there with your team.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Right,
I
right.
like it. I like it. So as we kind of head towards the close here, um, showing my white beltness at this podcasting thing.
Yes, sir.
So on the normal episodes, I have a few kind of little fun questions as to kind of close out, but they are very Kempo specific. So I'm
Okay.
gonna have to kind of change this up a little bit. So I would and guess give the listeners a little homework. So is there I guess a self-defense technique or a movement or something that is your favorite? And, if it's got a specific name, then I and the listeners can look it up if or if it's just like, oh, like I love an elbow to the face, then that's just like
For
a favorite
me,
movement.
my favorite move. Oh man, I don't want to give that information out to my students. They'll try.
No, it's like that with in capoeira. I every time we would teach like a sweep,
Yes.
everybody's throwing the sweeps like crazy, and it's like, yeah, I need to know how to defend against them. It's great that you're working on the movement, but man, like
Yeah.
stop throwing 50 sweeps in a row.
Because they get
So
sweep
yeah,
happy, right?
yeah,
But for
exactly,
me,
exactly.
for me, because I had training under Moses Powell, which is his style is called Sanukazru, which is more of a close range, locks, throws, and whatnot. I kind of like to stay inside, on the inside
Hmm.
game. A lot of people, especially in karate, taekwondo, blah, 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 they like to stay on the outside because that will allow them to kick, right?
Hmm. Exactly.
So for me, I like to stay on the inside because I like to do shitazuki, and I won't give the I guess I can give the definition. So shitazuki is for us is like a body punch straight on,
Hmm.
a body punch
Okay.
straight on. So I like to throw shitazukis. I like to throw hook punches to the body. I like to throw knee kicks, but primarily I like to stay in close. I don't want my opponent to get so far away from me where I have to chase them all over the place. So I like to be right in the pocket. So that's for me.
Okay.
I like to stay
Very
close.
nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Do you have a favorite form or favorite kata? I guess would be the term to use.
Yes. My
And once again,
favorite
we can use
kata.
the homework for you
Yes. My
tell us the
favorite
name and we'll look it
kata.
up.
I got you. My favorite kata would be Geksai Dai. Geksai Dai. That's my favorite kata. My favorite kata outside of the Kyokushin curriculum would
Ooh.
be Unsu. Unsu. Look that kata up.
So,
Beautiful kata. Beautiful
okay.
kata. Yes,
Uh,
Unsu. Unsu. Unsu.
okay. I got my homework.
Yes.
Um, okay. The next one is there is anyone that you could train with, living or non-living, fictional or non-fictional, who would that be? And if there's more than one, that's fine too.
Oh man, that's so easy. Masuyama.
Of course,
Masuyama. You
of
have to train
course,
with the Godhead, right?
of
So it's
course.
gotta be Masuyama. Gotta
All
be
right.
Masuyama.
All right.
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. And then the final question. Well, yeah, it's a little question. So kind of the father of American Kempo is Ed Parker, and Ed Parker was very very much a fan of jokes and that sort of thing. So this is a new kind of question that I'm going to start asking. So to kind of close out, do you have a joke? And if you don't, that's okay.
My goodness. Do I have a joke? For somebody who likes to laugh, I don't have a joke. I am sorry. Maybe if you invite me again, then I'll have one prepared.
Of course. No. Now that I have a little bit more understanding, and of course, I will come and visit your school. I know I keep saying I'm gonna show up, and I keep liking posts and things like that.
Hey, keep liking the posts. Keep saying that you're gonna come. Eventually, you'll walk through the door.
Yeah, no. I'm totally like I'm gonna come and check out a class, but
yes,
no,
sir.
that's good. We'll close out and we'll find a new joke for next time. So, yeah. I just want to thank you so much for being on. I'm eager for more information. So we'll definitely
absolutely
communicate some more. Thank you for taking this journey with me, being my first non-Kempo guest. So
okay,
so you get that honor. So
yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
But no, I want to thank you, and I pray much success for your podcast.
All right, thank you.
Knowledge is power, right? And the more we learn about each other, the more respect we will have for each other.
Exactly.
Yes, sir.
So just before we close out, is there anything else that you wanted to say or touch on, or we'll
absolutely. Hey, if you are in the DFW area and you have some interest in full contact karate, you can reach me at DallasKyokushin.com. DallasKyokushin.com. And I'll be open to answer any questions that you may have, or if you're interested in, participating in some classes, just let me know.
All right. Well, thank you. And
all right, brother.
We will talk again soon.
All right.